Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Boom Rookies. Coming at you live from the Temple of Boom. My name is Matt Bungard and with me today, Nick Campton. Hello.
Yes, we are here today together. We're in the colours. It's Rivalry week. Maybe this will be finally what tears our friendship asunder. I hope so.
Me too. Yeah, I mean, look, if people aren't aware, Souths and Canberra don't play each other very often because Souths are very popular, very well-liked club with a lot of fans, so the TV schedule makers try to put them against other good, popular teams, and Canberra are not that. No one cares about them at all, so we only get to play them like once every year. So these games are quite a rare treat, Nicholas.
Absolutely. And it's very sporting of Latrell Mitchell to be too terrified to show up and play against the Raiders for the fifth year in a row.
This is an incredible stat.
He's not going to be there.
Like, jokes aside, this stat is incredible.
Yeah, it's nuts. So Latrell Mitchell hasn't played against the Raiders since the 2019 Grand Final through a variety of injuries and suspensions and other misfortunes that have befallen him. What can I say? Just doesn't want to show up. Doesn't want to get what's coming to him.
Yes, famously, he was terrible in that grand final.
Souths, but he went to Souths and became a coward.
Yeah.
Incredible. The correlation, it's just impossible to deny at this point.
I guess so. And we'll have plenty to talk about NRL-wise in a second, but the NRLW season is back with the season opener tonight. The Roosters and the Knights. I think it's a great move putting the opening game on standalone. So often at this time of year, Nick, it's a struggle for people to try and watch all the football when it's clashing and stuff, but they're giving the women's competition the big spotlight on Thursday night this week.
They are, but that's kind of the only time they're doing it
Yeah.
until the finals start again. And I think this is a good place to start with the NRLW. It's got a schedule problem. As the competition continues to expand, there's 10 teams now, there'll be 12 teams next season. It's getting more and more difficult for it to run concurrently with the men's competition.
Yep.
Because the men's competition, it's always going to overshadow it to some element, and getting clear air for the NRLW is the way to sort of help it grow to the next level. And I think the blueprint is pretty clear. I think the most successful NRLW season in terms of like general interest from the fans was that one a couple of years ago where they had the catch-up season that was played in February and March, and then the grand final was in April, and it was summer footy, and it was really good because people were craving rugby league after the long summer. It gave the NRLW its own sort of spotlight, and then it has the standalone grand final, which was a great event and a great occasion.
Yep.
And I think as the competition continues to grow, that's something that the NRL's going to have to really reckon with, you know. And I think there's an easy way forward if you have it as more of a late summer, early autumn competition, and you have the standalone grand final, and then you can go straight into the Origin series, and then around this time of year you could have internationals or whatever. So it's still it's a more constant presence in sort of the rugby league scene, but it also gives it time to sort of grow and breathe on its own. You know, I don't know if the NRL will ever do that because they seem pretty wedded to having both grand finals on the same day. But I think that's something that they're going to have to look at soon, because if you just look at it, there's 8 games a week in the men's competition. Now there's 5 games a week in the women's competition. In the women's competition, it's going to be 6 next year. That'll be 14 games a week. There is not enough time to watch all those games. It's just not possible, even for people like us that watch the games professionally.
It's Titans women against Parramatta women at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So it's sort of reaching breaking point in that context, and with the way the competition has expanded, with the talent getting spread around, with sort of more teams joining all the time, it's important, I think, to give them the proper platform. So that's something I'd like to see the NRL explore in the months to come, but who knows if they will.
Me too, yeah, because from this weekend we have games overlapping with men's games, and it's just too hard for anyone. Because, you know, time turners from Harry Potter aren't real, so...
Not yet.
Not yet.
We're working on it. Yeah, we'll get there one day.
We'll get there one day. But yeah, so season opener tonight between the Knights and the Roosters. How are you feeling about it? And how are you feeling about the competition in general with, you know, all the signings, all the movement that we've had?
Well, it's a great game to start off with, right? Because this is the blockbuster. You know, the Knights, the 2-time defending premiers. The Roosters, probably like the most consistent team over the last 3 seasons. Over the last, I think, 4 seasons, the only time they've finished outside the top 2 was the year they came 4th, and that's the year they won the premiership. You know, so we're going with like the real power in these waters early. It's an interesting one because I think while the Knights are probably still the best team in the competition right now, I think the gap between them and the rest of the comp narrows with each passing year. Well,
they're losing Caitlin Johnson next season as well.
Yeah.
This will be her last ride.
Yeah. But so the Roosters, the Corbin Baxter injury is a real blow to them. She's out for the season with a really nasty knee injury. And they've called Sam Bremner out of retirement. I think she'll be a big success. If she's even like 3/4 of what she was when she did retire 2 seasons ago, then they'll end up okay. That'll allow Isabel Kelly to go back to the centres. The Roosters will be able to sort of lean on their outside backs for their yardage the way they like doing, and then sort of back it up with the likes of Millie Elliott in the middle of the field. So I'm intrigued by this matchup. Like I said, I'm glad it's a standalone game. I think they'll get a good crowd up to Newey. I think it's important to get the competition off on the right foot. And it wouldn't shock me if this ends up being a grand final preview as well. You know, we nearly got this grand final last year only for the Titans to pull off that big upset in the prelim. But it wouldn't shock me if these two meet again in the big one later this year.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think they are the two strongest teams all around. Is there anyone that catches your eye that you think could be a potential sort of disruptor in there and come in and crash the party?
Well, I actually think neither of these teams will win the premiership. Like I say, it wouldn't surprise me if they're both there, but I'm actually taking the Titans to win it all.
That was going to be my fun pick.
Well, mate, you got to get up earlier, son.
What? Because I let you speak first.
Yes, you got to be quicker on the draw, brother.
No. But we've been. I saw them. They were $9 to win the premiership a couple of weeks ago. I sent that to a few people. It's enticing. They're a good team. They kept most of their squad together, which I think is really important in this competition, is continuity. Because a lot of teams do struggle with that. You have players leaving every season, but the Titans have kept their whole team together pretty much.
Yeah, Ivania Polito's still there at fullback. Lauren Brown's still there at halfback. Jamie Chapman's still out there in the centres. Georgia Hale's at lock. But the big boost for them, I think, will be Talia Fuimaono, who missed nearly all of last season through injury. Only got the one game in. And just adding another playmaker, adding a little bit more class to a team that was already really sort of finding its feet as the season went on last year. I think that could be a really big boost for them. The only departure of note is Steph Hancock, who's like an absolute legend still, but she was a bench prop and she was 42 years old. You know what I mean? Like
Still playing.
Still playing. She'll never stop.
No,
I love
never.
it.
That's great.
But I think that's the only significant loss. The continuity will be really good for them. I'd forgotten that Lauren Brown only moved to halfback in the final weeks of the regular season last year, but she's settled into that spot now, and I think that'll be a really big boost. I think even though they made the grand final, and even though they nearly won, they conceded 2 tries in the last 10 minutes to end up losing. I think they can improve from last year. And like, it's never a sure thing with a team that loses a grand final. It can either be a propulsive force for them to do better.
It either goes one way or the other.
Or something they never get over. I'm backing them to be the former.
Yeah, another team I think that will be there or thereabouts is the Broncos.
Well, they kind of always are, right? Like
it's kind of boring, but I think that the maybe Cronulla can crash the party. If they'd got Johnson this year, I'd feel a lot better about their chances. But it just does feel to me like those 4 teams that are the 4 favourites right now are probably going to be the 4 teams that are there.
I worry about Cronulla's forwards a little bit.
That's what I'm saying.
They've got Ellie Johnson, who's very effective close to the line in that, but apart from that, they actually might be. They actually might be.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that, so we'll have to look that one up. Yeah. But with Cronulla, they've got Emma Tonegado, one of the best players in the league. That move to 5'8", I'm still not in love with it. Like I thought she did okay with it last year, but she did okay with it because she's such a good player. She can make a fist of any position. And I get the idea of wanting to have her and Jada Taylor on the field at the same time. But I don't know, any time that you're not putting one of your best players in their best position, I'm always going to have my doubts a little bit. I actually think the team that could potentially crash into that top 4 is the Raiders. So the Raiders had the best, of the 4 new teams last season, the Raiders kind of had the best start to it. They only missed out on the finals, I think, by the one win. And there were times in that season where they sort of struggled to take on the competition's elite because they just weren't quite playing with the cohesion that comes with playing together. You could tell they were a bit of a new side. But they've got nearly everyone coming back. Appy Nichols is back. The Tamara sisters are both back. Samaima Talfa's back. Grace Kemp's back. Holly Mae Dodd's back. And they've got a lot of like nice young players who I think will be much better for the run. So someone like Mackenzie Wiki, I could see her having a real breakout season. Or Mona Lisa Soliola, who's still just 20, but is about to start her 3rd NRLW season. Like she's sort of someone that I could see becoming an elite player over these next 10 weeks. So Canberra, like they'll need to sort of improve a lot from last year if they're to crack the finals. But I think they've got the scope to do that.
Yeah. Totally, yeah. I mean, and in true Raiders fashion, winning record, negative points differential.
That's how we do it, man. The Raider way.
The Raider way, yeah. And then the rest. This is the thing that the reason why this preview is kind of kind of chalk right down the line so far is because in contrast to previous NRLW seasons, there hasn't been that much player movement. There's been a couple of players leaving, but by and large, a lot of the squads are the same as they were last year. And I guess that's good for the sport. We want more continuity. We don't want it to go back to like the early days of the NRLW where people were changing teams every year and you'd get to the season, oh, that person's playing for this team now. But I guess the flip side of that is I'm not particularly high on the prospects of teams like the Dragons or the Eels or the Tigers.
Dragons are interesting. They've had more turnover in the last couple of years than any other side. They've only got like 2 or 3 players left from that team that made the grand final in the first 2022 season. They've had a lot of changes. And some of that is about getting young players in, but most of it is sort of banking pretty heavily on cross-code converts. They're going to miss Tyler King, that she's playing in the Olympics with the New Zealand Sevens side. That's a really big loss, but they've got this halfback coming off the bench this week. Her name's Casey. I think it's Reh. It's R-E-H. I've only ever seen it written. I haven't heard it said. And she's like a bit of a junior prodigy. She captained the Steelers Tarsha Gale Cup side to a premiership and got player of the tournament in that. She captained the Blues under-19s a couple of weeks ago. She got player of the match in that big win over Queensland. Local junior, local product, come through the grades. Like, that's what Saints are all meant to be about.
Yep.
You know, so players like that are starting to filter through. And so when that happens, I think Saints will be more successful again. And they've still got Tegan Berry. Like, as long as she's there, she's going to be able to make the team
She was great
competitive. And then, like, the Eels and the Tigers, they're a bit the same. I think they're waiting for their first generation of local juniors to really come through and settle things up a little bit. The Tigers have some really experienced forwards in Kezi Apps and Sarah Togatuki. I'm not sure where their points are going to come from. That might be a bit of a struggle for them. I think both your girl, Bovetti Welsh, is going to have a lot of responsibility there. But they got some outside backs that I really like, and they got this back rower, Cheyenne McGlone, who's coming off an awesome season in the Brisbane Premiership. I think she had like 9 tries in 10 games or something like that. She's definitely one to watch.
Yep, and then the Cowboys, we've not talked about them, but again, much like their men's team, the list on paper looks pretty damn good, but they underachieved last year a bit, and they could be on the rise this year. If
they could. They're a bit the same. The local comp up in North Queensland, and especially around Townsville, is really, really strong. It's like a really good regional centre for women's rugby league, and it's just sort of like the Cowboys are waiting for that first wave of talent to really come through.
Yep.
You know, this year they'll still rely really heavily on Kira Dibb and Emma Manzelman and sort of their more established stars, but they've signed 4 players from the Mackay Cutters side that won the Brisbane Premiership this year. Lillian Yarrow, Libby Circa and Lily Peacock, a lot of L's. And Lily Peacock got player of the match in that grand final. She turned like through 200 metres in the front row and had like 5 or 6 tackle busts. Like, she looks like a
good front rower's
goer.
name too.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So I think the Cowboys are relying a lot on sort of local homegrown Queensland talent, and that's always going to be the best strategy for them. So it wouldn't shock me if they surprise a little bit too, or at the very least they improve, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So what do we say? I'm going to say Titans over Roosters in the grand final.
I'll go Titans Knights rematch, but Titans win it this time.
Yeah, and they nearly won the last one.
Yeah. So
when the best player in the world decides to take over, there's not a lot you can do.
That's the thing.
It was very similar to the men's comp.
Yeah,
it was just like, well,
Tamika Upton just decided she was going to win the game.
Yep, all right.
And away you go.
Yeah. I did love that the Titans membership pack, you got a little Riley Jorgensen air freshener with the headgear on.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah,
that's cool.
Viv, friend of the show, sent a photo of it in the mostly dormant Titans Discord channel, but
she's good, Jorgensen. She's a hitting machine.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of hers. So yeah, it should be good. Tonight will be good, and we'll wrap it all up on Monday.
Who you got tonight?
Roosters.
I'll go Knights just because the Roosters have had a few of those injuries and their cohesion might not be there, and the Knights just seem so settled.
Fair enough. And now it's time for another round of What About This Bloke, our weekly segment where we take a trip down memory lane and talk about a rugby league player from the past. Late 90s, early 2000s is our sweet spot. And who is it today, Nicholas?
Sitting around and naming old footy players is the finest thing a person can do. It's literally my favourite thing to do in the entire world. And this week, beloved patron Adam Small has come up with an absolute beauty. Adam Docker.
Great one.
Panthers legend.
A rugby league name, Hall of Famer as well.
Great rugby league name, but if you're just a little bit quiet, if you just listen, you'll hear every Panthers fan you know muttering "Hell yeah, brother" under their breath. Didn't play that much, only like less than 50 games, but made a big impact in that very short time. What do you remember about Adam Docker?
All aggro, all aggression, all 100 miles an hour every time he got the ball and every time someone ran at him.
Hitting
just
machine.
A really physical, tough player. Wasn't the biggest guy, but really ripped in.
Hard as nails. And like I have such fond memories of him and another What About This Bloke we did the other week. Him and Nigel Plum just linking up and just smashing dudes.
Wouldn't run
like absolute hit parade.
Yeah, and of course a country origin representative.
I know. So that just enhances his guy credentials. But Adam Docker, like the more you look into it, the more you realise it's actually quite a sad story. So he's a Shell Harbour junior, and his career nearly finished before he began. In 2011, when he was only 20 years old, he's playing 20s for the Dragons, and he was out in Cronulla somewhere, and he got rolled by a gang of teenagers, like 20 of them. And they like set on him with like knives and wine bottles, and he was in an induced coma, and it looked like he was going to not make it for a little while. So it's a horrible thing to have happened to him, but he comes back from that. Debuts for the Panthers in 2012, but 13-14 are his really good years. And like we were saying, he's just tough, he's rugged, he's uncompromising. It's hard shots all the time. And almost from the time he sort of got consistent first grade, people were saying, yeah, this bloke's there's rep jerseys in his future. You know, there's big stuff waiting for Adam Docker. That's why he plays for country. It's why after Penrith have their great run in 2014 to the prelim, he makes the Australian train-on squad for the Four Nations. Like, things look like they're really happening. But then everything just sort of falls apart. He only gets the one game in 2015. He's got awful arthritis in his knee, and it gets to the point where he couldn't walk down the street without being in tremendous pain, and he has to retire. And he retired. He was only like 24, like barely getting started, and it just sort of all got taken away from him, you know. And I think he just went back onto job sites after that, did some scaffolding, did some building for a little bit, just when he became a regular guy again, you know.
I mean, the Nick Walshaw wrote a great article about Docker a couple of years after he retired, and apparently Tim Sheen's called him a young Paul Gallen. Mark Guy said he was destined for Origin. Phil Gould said he had no fear, one of the best young players he'd seen, and just ended up over. He played one finals game in 2014, the prelim final, and that was it.
Yeah. So it's tough how it goes, and it's tough how it goes when there's a bloke that we have such fond memories of. That would sort of just gets all taken away.
Back when Penrith were fun and I didn't fear them, just enjoyed it. I was like, yeah, look at them go.
You feared Adam Docker a little bit.
Oh no, sorry, feared my players running at Plum and Docker and stuff, but like it wasn't like now where you're like, oh god, we're playing the Penrith Panthers this week, we're going to lose.
So a bit of a melancholy. What about this bloke this week? You know.
But yeah, I mean, I think he's working as a plumber now, but he says he's got no complaints, doesn't want any sympathy.
Well, it seems like he couldn't complain if his hair was on fire. He doesn't seem like that sort of fella, but. Yeah, it's just shocking how these breaks go sometimes, man.
Yeah, sucks. But
remember when this was a fun segment?
No, it's Adam Docker, we salute you.
Love Adam Docker.
Who's up next week?
Up next week, we're back in the family. We're going up to the peninsula. We're bathing in the sunlight up there, and Scott Bailey is gonna give us what about this bloke? It's gonna be a Manly player, so brace yourself now.
I feel like he's told me who he's planning on picking, but I've forgotten.
Well, I have several mates who have told me I've got blokes in the chamber. In fact, I have one mate who said, yeah, I'm picking Adam Docker if my time ever comes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
so Matty Encarnacion, if you're out there, you need a new one now, bro. Adam Small has scooped you.
Can't believe neither of us know Adam Small, who went to St Greg's and was in the same year at school as me and knew like a bunch of guys I went to primary school with. Somehow neither of us know him.
Man, there you go. Ships in the night.
Indeed. Small world though. All right, weekend footy. The run to the finals starts here. Not so much in the Friday night 6 p.m. game with 14th place New Zealand against 17th place West.
The thing is, this is a great weekend of footy that just gets off to a rough start.
Well, I think
the two Friday games, palate cleansers.
I think I called it Who Gives a Rat's Ass Friday on the Monday show, but yeah, it is a bit like that. The Warriors, I mean, look, their season is still alive. They're in 14th, but again, that is because of bye points and a draw, and they're in that cluster and all that stuff. They could go on a run and make the finals.
Anytime you start saying things like mathematically...
Did I say mathematically?
You didn't, but anytime people start saying that about your team...
No, mathematically means
trouble.
you're dead. You're dead if it's mathematical. I think the Tigers mathematically could still make the finals, but they're dead. The Warriors could, in like... I don't know what the percentage... I'd say they still have like a 5 to 10% chance of making the finals. Like, they just have to win some games and things have to go right for them. They're not dead yet, but if they are going to make it, it starts at home against the team coming last.
Last chance for them.
Put on a show, boys.
Well, they're coming off two pretty heartbreaking losses. The Golden Point defeat to Canterbury. A game they probably should have won, and then the loss to Canberra as well. Another game they probably should have won. You know, and both performances were high on effort and high on courage. They lost a lot of blokes through injury through those two games, but at the end of the day, they're coming away with 0 points from both of them, you know? And that's kind of been the story of their season. They've had a real trouble in close games, but I think that they should have enough to get this one done, you know? Assuming that, you know, they don't have a spate of injuries during the match again. You know, they've got Tuivasa-Sheck at fullback. That's a good move. They've got Mawala Graham-Talfa in the centres. He's a young fella. He's only played the 2 NRL games, but one of them was that really good win the Warriors had over the Dolphins early this season, and I was quite impressed with him. He's athletic, he's light on his feet, he's mobile, like all those New Zealand centres seem to be. So I think he's one to watch. and they've still got they've still got their core of Fanua Blake, Barnett, Wade Egan and Dylan Walker in the middle of the field. And I don't think the Tigers will be able to compete with that, especially when we consider how bad the defence has been the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, the Tigers, on the other hand, have rung the changes. I like some of these changes too. So Aiden Caesar is suspended, and then Adam Dewey, David Clemmer, John Bateman all out of the team as well. Appy back is massive. Playing hooker as well. They've gone with Latu Finu at halfback, which is the other interesting thing. A lot of Tigers fans were like, oh, we're going to see Bud Sullivan again instead of Finu, but they've gone with the guy that people want to see. And we've talked about this with the Tigers a little bit down the stretch. Like, your season, you've got to see what you've got for the future. And running it back with Bud Sullivan wouldn't have made much sense to me here. So I'm glad they've gone with Finu. And they brought Ruben Porter back as well, who I'm a big fan of.
What is it about Ruben Porter that tickles you so?
I don't know. He's just I just think he's a good forward. And for some reason, the Tigers have had him in and out of the team at the expense of guys who are not playing at all well.
Do you like him because he sounds like a middle reliever for the Orioles?
He could be. He could be. But I just think he's a good player. And just, mate, when you've got a team that's forwards are constantly getting, I would kill for just like a solid forward, And he is that. So I think the changes they've made are really good. Stafford Toa, who for one glorious week was the best centre in the world at Leichhardt Oval that favour, he's back in the team too. So a lot of positive changes for Wests. But it's still a trip to New Zealand, and you're still, up against it.
Yeah, there is. I think they're back in the exuberance of youth to kind of come through on this one. And I agree with you. I like the fact that they're putting all the kids in and just sort of seeing
back too.
What they've got. Yeah, well, that's a good inclusion for them too. Really keen to see Latu Finu. He's sort of only done spot duty off the bench.
I'm keen for this
year, but I have liked some of the flashes that I've seen. I thought he was pretty effective against Souths, which I think is the first time that he's got sort of more than 5 or 10 minutes in the halves in first grade. So keen to see what he can do with it. This John Bateman stuff, I know he's not playing in this game and he's not playing again for the Tigers this year. He's going over on a loan deal to Warrington. Quite strange.
Yes, it is odd. I think that signing has been doomed from the start. Most Raiders fans, not you because you love John Bateman, most Raiders fans were poo-pooing it from the outset. It's gone quite poorly. He hasn't played well when he's been in the team. He's missed a bunch of games for a variety of reasons as well. Now he's gone. I know it says it's a loan. I would be stunned if he plays a game for the West Tigers.
I would also be surprised if that happens. This feels like either he goes over there to Warrington, kills it and they sign him, or he goes over there, he's in the shop window and someone else signs him. I really don't like how poor he's been for the Tigers. I actually really wanted him to do well because he was such an important part of those Raiders sides when he was there. But to me, it kind of just looks like everything's caught up with him. He's not an old man in footy terms. I think he's only 31. But he's been playing first grade since he was 16. It's a lot of games. It's a lot of wear and tear. The way that he played the game for a long time as well doesn't exactly age that well. So I think it's possible that maybe he's just physically not quite up to the NRL anymore.
There are also players who are just better fits in setups for a variety of reasons. I think Bateman fit what the Raiders was doing. The Raiders were a team that was already, had finals aspirations, made a grand final, had a lot of other big, tough, physical guys in and around him in that forward pack. Goes to West, a team that's rebuilding, a lot of young guys around him. There isn't a lot of leadership. There isn't a lot of people putting their best foot forward, especially in the forwards. And maybe that's had an effect too. Because it seems like he's been frustrated a lot of times.
Yeah, frustrated is the word. He's never been on a team this bad, probably since Bradford days when he was still a teenager. He went to Wigan, they always won. He went to Canberra, and the 2 years he was there were very successful. Then he went back to Wigan, and they kept winning again.
Yes.
So he hasn't sort of been in this setup before, and I think sometimes when you watch him play, you can see that frustration coming through. And there's reports that he had a big blow up with Benji on the way out about how Benji was treating the senior players and the younger players, and all that sort of deal. So I think frustration really is the word, but. I'm with you, man. It would be a big surprise, I think, if he pulls on a Tigers jersey again.
And if he went to a team that needed a back rower, that's an established power in this competition. If the Roosters had lost Angus Crichton and they signed Bateman next year to play 20 minutes off the bench, I'd be like, yeah, that'll probably work out. Or even if he went back to Canberra.
Well, now he's been linked with a move to your boys, hasn't he?
Yeah. That one's a little bit weird because it's definitely a position of need for Souths. They've been shuffling guys in and out of the back row. Cam Murray's played there. He's better off in the middle. Jaira's played there. He's better off in the middle. Keon was there. He's somehow also better off in the middle. And they're back to the Jacob Host, Michael Cheekham experience for most weeks. And yeah, look, initially when someone mentioned this to me this morning, I was like, I don't know like that. But maybe in a team where he's got some forward leaders around him, guys like Keon and Cam Murray, Not Tom Burgess because he's leaving, of course, but you'll get Totola back, and that's a pretty solid, established forward pack. And you'll get Wayne as well.
So you went from to
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So, and most importantly, I think South's cap is not great. So, he wouldn't cost much if they're eating a lot of the contract, which is honestly the most important thing at this point.
But yeah, it's I wanted it to work despite myself, know, and you're right, it just hasn't. For this game, I'm taking the Warriors, but I also think that they're going to get to a point soon where the dam's going to break and they're going to have a couple of bad losses, because they've been putting in so much effort and there just hasn't been a reward for it. But I don't think that'll be this week. I think their sort of forward power and the big home crowd will be enough to get them home over the Tigers' youthful exuberance.
Nick, every week I post a graphic on our Instagram page with our footy tips on it.
Yep.
And the one thing that annoys me is that so often we've got the same teams picked. So I'm going to start trying to pick a few more upsets down the stretch, starting with this game. I'm tipping the West Tigers.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I think they can do it. I really like all their team changes, and I'm really excited for the Latu Whānau show. Remember a young halfback making his debut? Well, not debut, but his first big moment against the Warriors? One Chris Sandow.
He did debut against the Warriors.
No, I'm saying Latu Whānau is not debuting. But it's his first big moment. For all intents and purposes, his debut. Maybe he kicks a field goal from 40 yards to win the game.
Wouldn't that be something?
Wouldn't that be something? Okay, 8 o'clock. Parramatta, Melbourne. The red-hot, unstoppable force of the Melbourne Storm against the...
movable objects.
Yep,
the Parramatta Eels.
A team that is out of players and just out of answers, I think. Look, Parramatta have had a really tough season.
Yep.
That goes without saying. They've had a million injuries. They've had some horrible losses. They've had guys, just when they started looking like putting things together, Mitch Moses gets taken out of the team for Origin, then his arm explodes and he's gone for the rest of the season. Nothing's gone right from this year. They sacked their coach, all that stuff. It's all eyes ahead for 2025 for Parramatta.
Yeah. Para's on the death march to the end of this season. And just taking this last sort of 2 months of the regular season as a whole, I actually think they're in a bit of a even worse spot than the Tigers, because the Tigers can at least throw all their kids in and sort of see what they're going with. Para can't do that. Ethan Sanders is leaving. Matt Arthur is leaving. They've sort of already debuted a bunch of guys and then not quite liked them and pulled them back out again. So Para really are just treading water and waiting for Jason Riles to officially join the club and for things to start up again.
The one nice story they've had in the last couple of weeks, Charlie Guymer also not playing.
Yeah, he's out for the season as well. So it's just so it could get really tough these last few weeks for Para. But I guess you're looking for the guys that are going to be able to stand up and who are going to keep fighting hard even though the season's gone, because then those are the dudes that you'll want to build the future
Clint Gutherson,
as much.
for anything you want to be critical of him, he'll never stop trying, no matter what the situation is, and I do respect that a great deal. But it just seems like against this team, it's just going to be far, far too difficult. And that's why...
Here's Taylor rolling the ball end on end. He's after it. He might have got it down. He thinks he did. Oh!
Coltrane Cup.
I'm Coltrane.
Won't Coltrane South, will you? No faith.
Yeah, so we're now in, after last week, the leader, Logan, he lost. I won. And now Michael also lost. He's a game behind both of us. So I'm equal first. Got one Storm tip left for the season. Away tips are great if you can get them out of the way as well. And this seems like an absolute no-brainer. Seems like an absolute free hit for an away pick. Yeah,
I think the Storm are going to cut them to pieces. And what's probably most dispiriting for Parramatta is the Storm could have a couple of changes.
Munster's lurking.
Munster could come back into the team. I think there's a chance they maybe rest Pappenhausen. The details sort of came out about that foot injury that he's carrying.
Yeah, weird one.
He hasn't been able to put a lot of weight on it for a while or whatever.
Anytime you've got to have a bunch of injections before you play, it's never great.
Yeah, so there's a chance that they rest him, but if they do, Fa'alongo's just going to come in and play, and he's just like an electrifying ball runner and just seems to have those special star qualities about him. So I'm not sure what Melbourne will do. I think in the past they've been guilty of peaking too early in a season and then running out of gas. This year feels a bit different. This year I feel like they're timing their run a little bit better. So maybe they just pull a couple of the dogs. Maybe pull Pappenhausen, maybe get Munster in next week. You don't have to rush. You don't you can handle this team without a couple of your key guys, So
George's man Tepai Moreau lurking in jersey 19 as well.
Exhilarating stuff against his former club too.
Moreau revenge game.
Wouldn't that be something?
Could be something special.
But yeah, the Storm will run the score up here.
I think so. Sorry to Parramatta fans.
Remember when Grant Anderson hurt his knee in the last seconds last week and people were acting like he was...
Yeah.
I
told you.
Like he had terminal knee cancer or something like that.
I told you he was fine. Like,
yeah, and he's fine. He's been named to play this week. It'll be okay. The Grant Anderson show will continue.
Dude, the crazy
Long
part about
may
that is that people were acting like that was like a big loss for Melbourne, which it is, because he's been playing so well. Yeah, but anyway, here we are. Yeah, Melbourne, obviously.
Melbourne by many.
3 o'clock game, a surprisingly important 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon. Usually Saturday at 3 p.m. games are of no importance. They're just light and breezy to get you started off on the Saturday. But it's Brisbane-Canterbury with
Huge,
a lot on the line.
See, we've had our vegetables from the Friday games. Now it's time to get into the meat.
Yeah.
Steak, brother. Bloody. It's dripping out of it as I'm chewing into it like an apple with my hands, bro, caveman style.
Nom. Yeah, big game. Big game. How are you feeling about it? Because I felt great about watching Brisbane last week and think that they are on the way to getting it all back together, and that could start. That run starts. I think that run could have started last week, and they could really get the ball rolling if they win this one.
We're in an interesting spot here with Canterbury because I think it's a similar dynamic to their game against the Cowboys, right? The Bulldogs' best weapon is their commitment, right? They're a very, very tough, very willing side who very rarely beat themselves. But just because of the way their team is constructed, particularly with their forwards, that I talk about all the time, there is a little bit of a ceiling on them, you know? And can Brisbane's talent overcome Canterbury's commitment? Last week, North Queensland's talent was able to overcome Canterbury's commitment. Canterbury having 2 away games in a row, 2 Queensland games.
Did they come back or did they stay up
I'm not sure about that, but regardless, it's either a lot of travel or it's back-to-back road games where you're away for a little bit, you know. So to that end, I'm sort of favouring Brisbane in this one. Scoring points has been a bit of a problem for Canterbury in the last few weeks. 4 games in a row, they've scored less than 20 points. Now they won 2 of those games. You know, so that's a measure of the sort of...
Their defence this year has been fantastic.
Yeah, they're a strong defensive side.
Are they still last in points allowed? Or first, I guess?
No, Penrith are.
They are now. Bulldogs were for a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
I don't know if they've gone back in front.
Regardless, their defence is really strong, but their margin for error is quite thin in that regard. So I kind of like Brisbane just to have a little bit too much flash, a few too many points in them, and just because Brisbane are the way they are, they could make mistakes 3 sets in a row, but then just score quickly anyway.
Yeah.
You know, they're a team that can elevate themselves above the grind that Canterbury sort of really like to play in.
Yep.
So I'm not expecting this to be easy for Brisbane.
No.
But styles make fights, and I think the style of this matchup favours Brisbane in a big enough a way for them to get it.
I'm really excited for the battle between these back fives. Like Canterbury love using their outside backs for yardage. They love getting them early ball, and Brisbane might have the best back 5 in the competition when everyone's there.
Well, I tell you what, Corey Oates dropping out, Selwyn Cobbo coming in, and then you see those 5 dudes, and you're like, oh my god.
Do you think they'll switch Cobbo and Mariner around?
I'm not sure. So
Mariner's
Mariner came through as a centre in the juniors, and I don't think he really played much first grade played much wing until he got to first grade. And then he was so good at centre last week. And Cobbo's shown a great ability to switch between the two positions this season. I thought in the...
And Mariner had a couple of rough games on the wing too.
He had. And I thought in the first sort of maybe quarter of the season leading into Origin 1, I thought Cobbo had been close to the best centre in the competition. I thought he was fantastic with the way that he sort of made a fist of that switch. So I'm not sure. I guess it's a good problem to have. Which of our stud athletes are we going to have at centre, and which stud athlete are we going to have on the wing? But yeah, man, I was just looking at that team list earlier, and it just feels like the first time in a long, long time that Brisbane are somewhat close to fully loaded. You know, and I think there's a much I know Piakura is a loss just because they don't really have another second row to be the next guy up, but. Even their bench, I really like the balance there. I've quite liked Tyson Smoothie as a passing middle. Haven't hated that at all. Blake Moses impressed me in the little glimpses he's had this year. And then you've got Willison, who's had such a great season, and then Marty Tapau, who's been quite strong, I think, over the last few weeks. He's sort of given them a lot of punch off the bench. So I think Brisbane will have too much strike and too much power through the 80 minutes for Canterbury to hang with. But Canterbury will hang in there. I don't think they'll get blown out. But I just don't know if they have the guns to go with Brisbane.
No, I'll be tipping Brisbane as well. But a big chance for Moser this week to make an impact, be that sort of other 9 for the future.
Yeah,
he's that's one of those dudes that I've heard Mitch talk about for 3 years.
Long time. But yeah, the first time I think a lot of people saw what all the talk was about was in that Dragons game a couple of weeks ago. I thought he was quite impressive with that. And while Billy Walters has, I think, made a pretty good fist of hooker over the last 18 months, it's different when you have like such a dynamic running thread out of there. And while Smoothie has done well as a passer and all of that, and I think it's a good thing he's still in the team somewhere. I think the idea of having someone who, like, just adding more speed to that Brisbane spine, more out and out strike, more ability to test the defenders, it can really open things up for him, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be a tough one for Canterbury. They've got a little bit of a shorter turnaround as well, a Sunday into a Saturday. I just think things have sort of, the deck's been stacked against them a little bit too hard.
Yeah, I think I'm really keen for some of these backline battles, but I think Brisbane might just have a bit too much for them. Okay, moving on. 5:30, North Queensland hosting Cronulla. The top 4 tour. What's the status?
Pending.
Okay, good. Yeah, another game that's very important for either of these teams' top 4 aspirations, and especially for the Cowboys' top 8 aspirations.
Yeah, and another very, very important game. This Super Saturday might be our best of the season so far. Like, it's 3 crucial games, and all 3 of them I'm expecting really tight contests. The Cows are wandering through this back half of the season in search of their better selves. The Sharks might have already got there. You know, I feel like the Sharks really found something in that big win over the Tigers. I know it's just the Tigers. I know that they were awful, but I think the Sharks needed an easy kill. I think they needed some of their guys to get just to get some good footy in, to sort of create a tide that's going to raise all the boats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We've talked a lot about how much they rely on Nico Hines when he's there. And I think with him not there, other people are having to pick up the slack, and then the team is a little bit more well-rounded for it. You know? So it won't be easy for him. They got Liam Eisen on debut at the back.
Yeah.
I've only sort of seen highlights of him, but he's had a really good season for the Jets. I would liken him a little bit to a Connor Tracy type.
Sure.
So just like fast, nippy, supports well, does all the little things right. I'm expecting him to come into this game really well prepared for it. Craig Fitzgibbon has shown a great propensity for that. Since he took over as coach, you know, they've sort of had Tracy in there and Kennedy in there and Cade Dykes in there, and there's been a lot of different faces in there, but they've always managed to kind of keep things together. And I like Wilton's back starting for the first time in a while. Talakai's dropping back to the bench. We've really liked that.
It's a really
move.
good bench.
Well, it sort of just rounds out the athleticism of the team a little bit more. And the pattern for the Sharks, I think, is really clear.
Yep.
You know, back 5 gets going, forwards back them up, halves make good decisions, and that's a really tough combination for a lot of teams to beat.
And the bench at the moment, Talakai, Hazelton, Rudolph, Hanlon, Uele, is very strong. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better one. So they're yeah, I think they're apart from their 2 key spine guys, this is probably the best team they could name, almost. They've got Jack Williams lurking in the extended bench, as do the Cowboys. Murray Taulagi could be back. That's a big in if they could get him. I think they need all the firepower they can get to try and match it with the Sharks back 5. But yeah, this is a really interesting. I don't really know which way I'm leaning on this one yet.
Well, it's kind of like, how much do the Cowboys take away from that Bulldogs win? You know, where they really did have to fight hard for it and dig deep and overcome a lot of adversity and strike late to win it. You know, that was a win that showed a lot more substance than maybe any other Cowboys win this season. So how much do they take away from that? Is that the start of a new Cowboys team, or is that sort of an aberration and they're still going to be the weirdo, run and gun, unserious team that they've been in the past? You know, I think they will take a lot away from it, and I think they'll play quite well in this one. But I think the Sharks will just have a little bit too much for them. You know, I could see the Cows coming into this game and playing super wide as often as possible and sort of opening up the game into an attacking way that sort of neutralises a lot of Cronulla's yardage. I could see that happening. I just think it's more likely that Cronulla get their game on more than the Cowboys do, because Cronulla just seem a little bit more used to it, even though they're only a win removed from that slump.
Yeah. Who you picking?
I'm picking the Sharks with little confidence.
Yeah, I think I'm in that same boat. I don't think you've tipped the Cowboys since you said they were going to make the top 4.
Well, all they do is hurt me. Why would I?
It's true.
Why would I?
It's true, but it does
I
feel...
tipped them last week.
No, you definitely tipped the Doggies.
No, I tipped the
Do
Cows.
you want to pull the... You tipped the Doggies, my friend.
Forging Instagram posts.
I'm almost certain you'd said
to
on
try and sully my good name using deep fakes to implicate me.
I mean, we could just go and listen to the show.
On tampered recordings.
I'm pretty sure you tipped the Bulldogs, but it's not important. Okay, Roosters, Manly, 4th versus 5th. What a sentence.
A McIntyre matchup, bro. This is how it's supposed to be.
What? Because both seasons will continue no matter who wins.
Yes. Most crucially.
Yeah. So Leo Apawadi's out because his face exploded. That was gnarly. But other than that, it's steady as she goes for both teams really in terms of their teams. So Manly have been an interesting team this year. One of the more difficult teams to get a read on.
Very much
Sometimes you see them run up a score against a team like the Titans or Newcastle and you think, who can ever beat these guys? And then there's other weeks where they get down in the muck against a team that knows how to defend and you think that these guys are hopeless. Outside of Cherry Evans and Turbo, they got nothing going on. The truth's obviously somewhere in the middle, right? But this is a gigantic test for them.
It's a massive game for both sides. The Roosters need to regroup after that loss to Melbourne. They looked a fair way off the pace and they didn't look like they were on Melbourne's level despite going into that game with a number of pretty big advantages. And then Manly, they've looked really good in recent weeks, but those have all been at Brookvale and those have been against teams that have kind of been there for the taking. So I think this game is less about what it's about and more it's about how it's about, if you know what I'm saying.
I get you.
It's more about which team is going to be able to go through their process, which team is going to be able to get their game on. I think winning this game is important, but how a team wins it is even more important. Like the Roosters have to regroup and almost prove to themselves that they're not just the flat track bullies that people are starting to whisper that they are. And I think Manly have got a little bit of that same thing about them. And we've talked so much about Manly's great expansive style, and that's sort of continued since Tom Trbojevic came back into the side. I think he's had 15 line break assists in 2 games or something insane like
23.
that. And then, but then you compare it to the Roosters. The Roosters have also got so much strike, but then they've also got that great power game that comes through in the middle sometimes. So I lean the Roosters.
That to me is the difference here.
Well, they're just a little bit more well-rounded as a side, and like Haumole Olakau'atu was a massive out for Manly, and I actually think Lehigh Hopewadi is as well. Not because he's, he holds the game in his hands every week, even though he's having a really good rookie season. It's just because he's out and Kohler's already out, they've got to shift Ben Trbojevic out to the centres. And I really like him as a back row, but defending in the centres is a little bit tougher for him. And if there's
is
a
it
team...
him versus Tupanua?
I am not sure, because Garrick's played both sides
That's
in the past a little
Tupanua's
bit.
on the left for the Roosters.
So I'm not sure.
Okay.
But if there's any team that you need to 100% have your backline defence set up for, it's the Roosters.
Yes.
That's probably an underrated element of Melbourne's success last week, the way they were able to slide and keep working so hard from the middle. The Roosters were very, very rarely able to get any space whatsoever. So if Manly come into this with a similar commitment, then maybe they can hang with it. But I think the Roosters will get them. I think it'll be hard fought. I think it'll be really, really tough. I think Manly will have their moments. I really like Taniela Paseka starting. I think that'll help give him a lot of punch up front early. But I think the Roosters.
Just re-signed too,
I think the Roosters just get him. He's re-signed for
great bit of
45 years. I believe.
Great bit of sign. I think it actually is till like 2029 or something.
2029.
Yeah, great bit of business for him.
Awesome.
He's awesome.
Terrific.
Yeah, I think that's where this game will be won. I just think the Roosters forwards just have a bit more physicality to them, a bit more drive. So I will. Good thing I took that Tigers upset because again I will agree with you and take the Roosters. Okay. Sunday, 2 p.m. These teams played like 3 weeks ago. The Dragons and the Panthers. They're back at it again. This one's not Origin affected though, so we'll get a proper look at both their squads with all those guys playing and all those dudes who Penrith didn't have last week after Origin 3 are back. So Toto returns, Yo returns, Luai returns, Martin returns.
Yeah, the only one not playing is Edwards, but Dane Laurie is playing out of his mind at the moment. So
awesome.
Why not keep Edwards on?
And obviously the Dragons didn't play last week, so they do get Hunt and Lomax back.
Yeah, looking at that Penrith team and seeing all the guys back in place for the first time in what feels like ages, I think a shiver went down my spine.
Look, again, I don't think they're as invincible as I thought they were in, especially I think 2022 was their peak. But I don't think they're as invincible as they were then. But they've been my pick to win the comp all year, and they still are. Just they get all these dudes back. They haven't even been going that badly. They're still they're second. They're
second on the ladder. Yeah.
And that's been without Nathan Cleary for most of the season.
For 10 weeks.
And without all these Origin dudes for 2 or 3 of those games, who are now all coming back. And it's such a luxury when you can afford an extra week that they had last week to rest a third of your salary cap and still win.
Yeah, it was Cleary, Leota, Fisher Harris, 2 other dudes in the Windsor Wolves.
Yeah.
And they got a really great comeback win against the top 8 side. Wow, we're running out of things to say about Penrith, really.
We ran out of things last year, I think.
Well, I think we ran out a long time ago. Paul Alamotti breaking his arm. That's really
sad.
tough beat. He'd been playing really well.
I like what I've seen from Casey McLean.
Well, he's just got speed, doesn't he? And the interesting thing about this Panthers side is the one thing that they kind of don't have on paper is like real top-end pace. You know, they got a lot of power, a lot of grind, a lot of grunt, a lot of dudes that can run for 250 metres. But having a guy who, like, if he gets into space and he's gone, that's an added element for them. So it's exciting to see how a team that's already rich get even a little bit richer. But what can you do? I'm keen to see how Luai and Cleary work together.
It's been a while.
Well, it has. And like their established dynamic is already so effective. But I wonder now if, just because Luai's had this 10-week period where he's run the team and he's done so well,
and he was
with
fantastic
it,
in Origin.
so good for the Blues as well. I wonder if they can use him a bit more as a first receiver, open Cleary a bit up as a second receiver. That's something Cleary's really good at.
Unleash his running game.
Well, mate, I don't know about unleashing his running game, but it's like in the grand final last year when Cleary went into that creator role, it just showed more strengths to his game, and it could just make this Panthers attack, which is already so effective, it could make it even more versatile and dangerous if both of them have the opportunity to create. You know, it's less like one's organising and one's playmaking, and more of like an even 50-50 split of that stuff. It could just add even more variety to an attack that's already like really, really good. So again, the rich getting richer.
Yeah, having said that, I think the Dragons are undefeated at Wollongong this year. I think they beat the Warriors, Manly, and the Tigers. I know all those. Have they played another game there? I'm not sure. But they've had a good record down there,
They've been very effective down there, yeah.
And they did beat Penrith like 3 weeks ago.
They did.
Granted, neither team had any of their Origin players.
They did. The thing with the thing is, and I know that they won that Origin-affected game. I know they did. But I just feel like the Dragons are such a bad stylistic matchup when they take on Penrith. So what I've really liked about the Dragons in recent weeks is the way that they've used a lot of their size and athleticism all over the field. That was most notable, I thought, in the win over Brisbane, you know, where they just like got Sully and Tuipulotu and
chucking some big beefy boys at them.
Throwing meat at the problem until it goes away, you know, and that's a really effective way to go through life.
It's not going to work against Penrith.
It's not enough against Penrith. Penrith cannot be bashed. They cannot be bullied. They cannot be out-muscled. You know, like that's Penrith's way of life, you know. So I just, barring, you know, one of those Ben Hunt games where he just looks like a red and white Jesus, it's just hard for me to see Saints' style overcoming Penrith.
You think back to games where Penrith have lost or looked vulnerable at any point, and it almost always just comes down to like a half playing out of their mode. Like the Parramatta had a good record because Mitch Moses always played good games against Penrith. The Broncos nearly won because Ezra Mam went out of his mind in the early parts of the second half of that grand final. And yeah, so if Ben Hunt goes Super Saiyan, sure, maybe they're a chance. But if doesn't, then it does seem like a really tough one to try.
Yeah, I don't think you can grind your way out of the problem against Penrith. No. You got to have strike to take when they're anything close to full strength. You got to have strike to take them down. And Saints have some. I just don't think they'll have enough. I think they'll put the gloves up definitely, but I definitely see this being like Penrith are up by 10 with 20 minutes to go and then end up winning by 24 points or something like that.
Seen that game a million times.
Well, I think we're about to see it the million and first.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I'm with you. Tipping Penrith. So. What do you want from me?
Tell you what I want from you. I want a Queensland Derby preview, and I want it right now.
4X Derby website's still down. We should just buy it at this point. But yeah, this is Dolphins, Titans, a lot on the line. Finals, forget about that. The 4X Derby's on the line.
The trophy.
Yeah.
The only pure game left is the race for the 4X Derby.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know the ladder because again, the website is down and I can't. The ladder where the teams are in alphabetical order and not sorted by like wins and losses and things like competition points.
It's the most arcane system I've ever heard of, and I absolutely love it.
Because the Queensland, it's just so Queensland Derby.
So say we end up with the last two Queensland teams that play in the regular season are playing off for the 4X Derby.
Yeah.
Right. Who hands over the trophy post-match?
Is it like a Butler Cabin situation where the captain of the previous year's winner of the 4X Derby has to hand it over?
I don't mind that, but I would rather it was like a Queensland
They have to helicopter
icon
Adam Reynolds in to hand. hand over the trophy to the Titans.
I think I'd prefer it if it was like a Queensland icon.
Okay, but I don't want it to be like an icon. I want it to be like a what about this bloke level player?
Okay, I was going to say like Bernard Fanning or something.
Oh, like a non-rugby.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
no,
what- yeah,
absolutely
that's what I
back
mean.
in. Yeah, Pat Rafter can hand over.
See, that's awesome. I would love that.
Yeah, Pat Rafter, the Chancellor of the 4X Derby.
Yeah,
the chef de mission.
Chancellor Emeritus of the 4X Derby, Pat Rafter. He's a mad league man as well.
Yeah.
Friend of the show, Neil Desmond, was telling me he shot a package with Pat Rafter for Origin last year, and Rafter's got like it's somebody's jersey from the early 2000s that it's match worn that they gave to him, and he still wears it all the time.
That's sick.
And he was talking about how he'd come down to Sydney for tennis tournaments in the 90s, and they were wherever the tennis tournament was right near where the Blues were training. And he'd like hit balls at them and stuff like that, and
funny.
tell them they were pieces of shit. And I was like, Pat Rafter gets Origin, bro. How good?
That's awesome. Pat Rafter, what a guy. We really tennis kind of really peaked in this country in like the late 90s, early 2000s, didn't it? So Pat Rafter winning slams and selling Bonds underpants.
Yeah.
And that's all you needed.
Well, then we had Leighton, who had his haters, but you know,
And then we had
he won a lot. That was good.
Ash winning the Australian Open was sick.
That was
On
dope.
the same night the K's won the doubles. That was great.
That was
like,
good, yeah.
Rafter, it is so funny that like I do think that stuff that was like normal in the 90s and then just like it made me think that was always the way things were. Like I always assumed Australia had dominant male tennis players.
Yeah, same.
Because
yeah.
of Rafter and Philippoussis and Hewitt when we were kids. But then
Well,
but it turns out like with the exception of like dudes back in the 60s, like it doesn't really happen before that or since then.
Well, do you remember when the Davis Cup was like appointment?
Oh,
viewing?
mate, huge.
Yeah, it was absolutely
I used
massive.
to hate Spain.
Oh God, I couldn't stand it.
Oh, we play on clay. Grow up. Children make pots out of that.
Children play in the dirt.
Yeah. And
Adults go around on grass and or hard court.
That's right. Clay. Give me a break. So
Yeah,
I'll
and
never
then
respect Rafter.
like Rafter and Philippoussis and died off, and that was kind of it. And it's like Davis Cup. Now I couldn't tell you a thing about it.
I know that they changed the format and everyone hates it. I do know that.
Do they also have a ladder that's totally out of shape?
Maybe. I think they moved it to Dubai and it pissed everybody off.
Okay.
I mean, that is the logical death of anything is when you move it to the Middle East.
Yep.
Instead of it having it like in a country that is playing in the competition.
Shout out Matt Coleman.
Well, yeah. He's here right now. But yeah, this game, Dolphins, Titans. The Titans, look, they're mathematically alive.
Oh yeah, very much.
So they're mathematical, but they've had some. Like last week aside, they've had some interesting games recently. They've been playing tough.
They have, and I actually think Manly showed the pattern for beating the Titans. So the Titans had that really good first 20 minutes and were doing a lot of their nice attacking stuff. They're getting their left side going. They were sort of showing a lot of the class that they can sometimes possess. But I thought Manly stayed on the job and sort of rose above the chaos of the Titans, and that is what the Dolphins need to do here. You know what I mean? The Dolphins have to be disciplined, be focused, play your game, don't let the Titans drag you into one of their games. And if they do that, I think they'll have it too much for them. Like, if they get drawn into a shootout, I don't know if they can run and gun the way the Titans can. But if they're deliberate and focused and committed and all those coaching buzzword things, I think they'll be able to grind this one out.
You say that, but the Dolphins have been more Titany than the Titans for large parts of this season. The Dolphins have been the appointment viewing team. They've been the neutrals' delight. They've played in like 4 or 5 bonkers high scoring games in like just off the top of my head, the Cronulla, Souths and Penrith games they played in were all awesome and high scoring, with both teams scoring like 30 points or so. And we could get another one of those here.
See, that would be awesome. But I think in passages of all those high scoring games, the Dolphins have shown that sort of more deliberate game style. So I think that if they want to make the finals, they've got to stretch that into being more of their game than it currently is. So while I take your point, and while I would love a 48-42 Sunday afternoon showdown, I love games like that.
Yeah.
I think if the Dolphins want to be a little bit more than they are right now, they can't let themselves get into another one of those games.
The 2 games that they played last year was the game where the Titans were winning 26-0 and the Dolphins won 28-26.
Where they equaled the record for the biggest ever comeback.
And then the 23-21 win that they had on the Gold Coast a couple of months after that. And then the other game they had this year, I'm certain the Gold Coast were winning 14-0 in that game. And they didn't score another point and the Titans beat them 30-14. I'm pretty sure they shot out to an early lead, the Titans
Run me through it again. It was really early in the year, wasn't
it was like March, but all I remember is like, maybe it was 10-0 or something. And then I definitely think the Titans started well. And
That's right, it was. They did, yeah.
But then the Dolphins ran away with it. So they've in all of those games, the Dolphins, I think in all 3, the Titans have never beaten the Dolphins, but they've had leads in all 3 of those games and double-digit leads in 2 of them. So yeah, this could be a silly one.
I would like that.
Yeah.
I would like that because the next game is very serious.
That's right.
So I wouldn't mind a silly lead in.
I'm going to pick the Titans. Why not?
Hey?
I'm going to pick the Titans.
I'm fins up, brother.
All right, we're good. All right. And lastly, 6:15 p.m, the graveyard shift, which is appropriate because this show will be dead at 8 o'clock on Sunday night. Canberra playing Souths. Nick put a call into the corrupt NRL to get Camo rubbed out of this game. Every little bit helps.
It's important to have friends in high places. I guess Souths can't relate.
He put a voodoo curse on Richie Kenner last week to get him injured.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. Shameless stuff.
I was trying to get Cody Walker and it just sort of like it misfired a bit.
Wrong guy.
A little bit too far down the back line.
I'm sorry, Richie.
No, Richie.
So yeah, a couple of outs, which means Michael Cheekham's playing in the centres. Great. South Canberra for once in a year, as always.
How you feeling?
Fine. Less like if we again that Dolphins game just took a lot of the wind out of my sails in terms of like thinking Souths were going to go on this storied run and make the finals, like an 09 Para-esque situation. But just losing that game and knowing they've got Storm Penrith, they've got to play all the top four still.
Is that bad?
It's not good. I mean, they might win a couple of them, but like they're not going to win all four of those. So like once they lost that Dolphins game, I kind of went, yeah, it's probably over. They might win this game. I think the season's probably still on life support, but it is very, very funny to me that if we win this game, we're ahead of you on the ladder. What if we just won?
What? No, you can't do that. That is out. That's my thing.
No,
what if we just won is my deal.
That's
You
why
can't take it off me, bro.
I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, big game this one. Like I'm going to be saying that before and after every Raiders game until they are eliminated from finals contention. So
I'm going to text you every 45 seconds because you'll be at work on Sunday. No, huge set in the context of this match.
Yeah, it's again, it's a little bit like the Cowboys. How much do Canberra take out of that win over the Warriors? And I'm not talking about the style that they played with because apart from the first 20 minutes, there wasn't a whole lot of style. It's more about confidence. It's more about what sort of emotional strength do you take out of that game that they can then apply to the rest of their season? Because Canberra's pretty much at full strength or like close enough to it, you know? And they've got all the guys that were there when they had that really good start to the season, when they played that really strong style of footy where it was just toughness and aggression and Jamal Fogarty's kicking game and just sort of refusing to be knocked around like that. But they haven't played that way in a really long time. If they do get that footy on, I think that could be really successful against Souths. Like Souths have got a lot of points in it, right? I think it's like they've scored 22 points or more in 7 of their last 8 matches. Yeah. Like they can put points on. But I think if the Raiders really turn the screws and play with great discipline and great focus and get Souths into a real like trench warfare type game, I don't think Souths will like it, and I don't think Souths will want to be in a match like that. But that performance like that takes a lot of discipline and takes a lot of focus and takes a lot of consistent application. Canberra haven't been doing that for a long while now.
We also rarely beat you.
Yeah, again, we only play once a year,
so it's hard. But it's like we've won like 3 of the last 10 or something.
Yeah. Well, since 2019, so there was the regular season win in 19 and the regular season win in 21. Yeah. But then that's it. Canberra's won all the other games.
Yeah. So it's a tough place to go and play. Tough without your best back and your best forward both not playing. Would that be enough to make me keep Canberra? Absolutely not. Of course I'm tipping Souths. But you're taking it one step further.
Oh, yeah.
Here's Taylor rolling the ball end on end. He's after it. He might have got it down. He thinks he did. Oh!
Coltrane Cup.
Believe in my team. Is that such a crime?
No. But I've got a Coltrane Cup to win, my friend. I can't just waste week 21 picks on frivolities.
If you think it's a waste backing your boys against their greatest enemies, if you think that's a waste, then I don't know what to tell you,
the
bro.
storied rivalry between Souths and Canberra.
I was raised right on the South Sydney Canberra
Mark
border,
Nichols.
I'm telling you.
Oh yeah, we settled on a name for that because we can't have Dave Taylor because Dave Taylor's like us and the Broncos and you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. It was like Joe Picker, Saliva Havili, Colin Best, Mark Nichols. Anyone take your fancy?
Probably Picker. I'm not sure why. It just sort of, it scratches me in just the right place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's not, I mean, he played like 10 games for South in the last season of his career, but finished up a premiership like in the
You were calling him premiership winner Joe Picker off mic just earlier.
Could we be this, what about Sikamanu?
He never played for Canberra or Souths.
I mean, Jeff Lima, I did that thing again.
You were looking at...
Yeah.
You were looking at Jeff Lima's Wikipedia page.
And I still said
Sikamanu.
Sikamanu.
Said Sikamanu.
Laurie, edit this out.
No, Laurie, keep it in.
No.
Keeping it in.
Yeah, got that. Thanks, producer Laurie.
It's like there's this like certain guys where I just always interchange their names for some reason.
Well, your worst one for that is Scott and Josh Drinkwater.
Well, yeah.
You've gotten better at that, but I think you've just started calling him Drinkwater just to cut things out.
Anyway, I meant Jeff Lehmer.
Yeah. Well, how unfortunate for you.
No,
that's what you call a tone setter, bro. Another early blow for the Raiders.
I pulled up his Wikipedia page as well, just to double check.
You were looking at the Wikipedia page.
Because I was like, I'm pretty certain he finished his career at Canberra, but I'm not 100% sure. And then I pulled it
You know
up.
what? Let's do it. Let's call it the Sycamore Shield. Let's get him on the horn this weekend. Let's lean into it. For the game itself, like I said, I think it's got to be a defensive-minded game for Canberra because their attack this year has not been that flash. They're last in the league for line breaks. They're equal last for tries, assists, and they're third last for tries. So when they have attacked well, it's because they've been deliberate and maybe even a little bit crude in the way that they attack. But against a team that likes to play fancy, that likes to play a bit technical,
and a team that doesn't like defending,
you can do worse than going a little bit crude. You know what I mean? So I really want them to do that. I really want them to target Cheekham as much as possible. I assume he's playing right centre. Mill will be on the left. Seb Chris has not had a real good season at all. Sort of really struggled to put together some of the form that he showed last year, but he was better against the Warriors, and I think early ball down that edge for him and Hudson Young and Ethan Strange will go a long, long way to helping Canberra put some points on the board. And yeah, they need this one.
Well, one thing
I need this one. We all need this one.
There will be points. That we know. Souths can't defend.
Yeah.
Like they've had some decent weeks in this little mini run that they've had, but a lot of that has been the opponents they played. Like they played a Manly team with none of their first graders playing. They played a Brisbane team with like 8 guys not playing, and they held those teams pretty scores. But although even at Brisbane game, they let up like 10 line breaks. Brisbane just didn't score because they kept dropping the ball. But I think so. It's a little bit of fool's gold in what Souths have done defensively. I think their attack's been out of sight, and I think that they've deserved to win all the games that they won. But their defence has been poor. Some of the tries they're conceding against the Dolphins were like very bad.
Yeah.
And then a couple of ones last were like conceding on the halftime siren to West, who were playing the ball inside their own half.
Yeah.
As a siren is not good. A couple of those tries were very, very soft, like Talon De Silva just slicing straight through them as well. That worries me. I mean, if there is a team that is bad at taking advantage of those things, it is Canberra, who can't score points, as you just touched on. But I just think that with how porous Souths have been, Canberra will find a way to score enough points to make this an interesting contest. But I do think that South's attack has been pretty good recently.
It has.
And good enough to exploit some pretty bad defensive lapses in a Canberra line, which they've got in them as well, especially once they take the lead in games and they forget what they're doing.
It's the most dangerous time of all when they're up by 20.
It's very funny because if you get up like 10-0, you're going to be terrified.
I'll be so scared, dude.
Yeah.
But if we're down 10-0 after 5 minutes, we got them.
Yeah.
We got them just where we want them. Yeah. I think Fogarty's kicking game, again, will be really important. I think that South's back 3 can have an error in them. Jai Gray, strong in attack, but
keep Jordan Rapana away from him.
I'm not responsible for what happens out there, bro. So I think Fogarty will really try and test Gray and Gagai, especially with his kicking game, put as much height on it as possible. How are you feeling about Whiten? What do you want from Whiten in this game?
To play good, which he's not really done. He's had flashes. I thought in the second half of that Dolphins game, he actually showed a lot of intent and played really well, popping up on that left side, getting the outside men involved, running when he needed to. His defence has been pretty decent all year. That even when we were bad at the start of the season, I liked what he was giving us defensively playing centre. But in this game, I just, it's a waste of time for me to say this because it's not going to happen, but I don't want him to overplay his hand. But when he gets down there against his old team, where we discussed this on the Question Time show, he'll probably get a cheer at the start, but I imagine he'll get booed every time he touches the ball once the game kicks off. That might get in his head a little bit and he'll think, I want to show these pricks, I'll show them. And that leads to either Jack Whiten doing something cool that results in South scoring or something insane that results in Canberra scoring.
I have watched Jack Whiten for many years. Nearly every time he's been in that situation where it's a big emotional game and he's gone out to try and prove something, it's gone poorly. Yep. I think back to the game that he played. The South stuff had come out, but it hadn't been confirmed yet, and they played the Dragons, and he had perhaps the worst game I've ever seen him play. He's not the sort of...
I remember that. He was awful.
He's not. I don't think he's the sort of bloke... I think he's best when he's not fussed and he's not worried.
Yeah.
And I think if Canberra are smart about this, they'll go after him as much as they can. They all know him. They all know how he works and what he's like. I would love it. I would love to see them throw as much attacking shape at him as possible, make him make decisions on the edge of the ruck. That's a place where he can get undone. I really want to see Canberra sort of rough him up a little bit as best as they can. That's not that to me. That's like a sign of respect for a guy coming back.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I want to try and see him get in his head a little bit because he can spiral quickly and he can go off the job when he gets a little bit too emotional about what he's doing. And occasionally that drove him to great heights, you know, especially with his defence and with effort areas and things like that. But it can fall apart really quickly too, you know. So it'll be a strange day. It'll be really weird seeing him play against Canberra.
Yeah.
I can't think of anyone else in Canberra's history, probably since like Daly and Ricky Stewart and Brad Clyde, who have left the club and then come back and play against him again, you know. So, yeah, it'll be a strange day. Please win, Canberra.
Yeah. The only thing in the Whiten column that's working in his favour, I think, is that in all those games for Canberra, he's been the guy. Whereas Cody Walker's the guy on this team. So maybe that will take a little bit of the pressure off him. But
Perhaps.
we shall see. Should be an interesting game. I also think there's a world where South loses like 38-14. But I am.
I would love that.
No, I wouldn't. Just can't beat Canberra for some reason. All right, that's the show. We did it.
We did it.
Got any news?
No, well, we kind of touched on the Bateman stuff and all of
Paseka.
that through the show, bro. It was a real organic kind of process.
Got some news for you. At 8 p.m. Sunday, there's gonna be a little boy in a Raiders jumper.
Why
crying.
are you gonna borrow this one? I burst into tears at my feet.
I like that the Australian taxpayers are keeping us apart on Sunday. they know they can't risk the show
The
imploding.
Australian taxpayers or the Australian Federal Police?
Both. Not your first brush with the AFP, is it, champ?
Wow, you know, we all have it. We all have a past.
All right, before we get out of here, a quick shout out to people in the top 2 tiers on our Patreon subscription service. If you want to support us, patreon.com/Emperor, you get access to our Discord server, merchandise discounts, and a third show every single week. There's like less than 5 corduroy hats left, so if you want one, buy one. Or if you don't, that's okay.
No, it's not. Buy them.
Oh, okay.
Are you kidding me?
Sorry,
Buy
do what he
them,
said.
bro. What are you doing?
Yeah. Okay, so thank you to a perverted female listener. Sup, Chris Avnell, Dave, haha, you're Queenslanders. Stu, the Slater Origin Disconnect, 99 Pog. A bloke hurting in the shed, Adam Small, the 2024 Brisbane Broncos, Billy Slater, the dumbest smart guy in the room. Billy Slater, Broncos legend, Adam Reynolds, Bruce the Piting, Pombutty, Chivax Snuffleupagus, Dan Carlane, David, and anonymous backer, Ed Burton. Getting Dog Reacts in the Game Day channel is the finest thing a person can do. Hating Link is the finest thing a person can do.
Hell yeah.
Hitting the gritty when South score 40. Jacob Wish Foundation's fresh Game 3 jersey. Jez Plus, Joel Wrigley, John, Josh Brandon, Gerbo's invaluable leadership, kicks us out of the comp, Lachlan Hancock, Luke Charles Smithwell, Mads, Taylor's version, Matthew Duggan, Melbourne Storm, more spines than a Hydra, Josh King, the next New South Wales number 6, Morgan Watkins, my ding ding dong is hard and I'm sad, never trendy, Pasami Army, Paul Mac 78, push it up, Manly, Reece Brown, Reynolds is the new little master, Roxanne Clark, see you in Vegas, Ty, TB, the Black Vegetable, the Brisbane Sniper, the Cowboys top 4 tour starts this week. The God Emperor of Mankind, Adam Reynolds, the North Papua Cayman Island Ramjet Bears. That's something in Irish that I don't know how to say. Can you?
I don't know. My Irish isn't as good as it used to be.
Okay, I know that some of those H sounds are meant to be like verse sounds.
Yeah,
I'm aware of that.
I won't. You know what? I won't embarrass the chosen people by getting that wrong live on air.
Thor. And Westside Podcast, Souths were cowards in 1909. Some say they still are. Thank you so much for your support to everyone in the lower tiers and to everyone who just listens. Thank you as well. There's been like an Instagram post from like another footy podcast going around that like 5 people have sent me about, did you know South stole the 1909 premiership? It's really annoying. Maybe Balmain should have just turned up. I don't know. Just saying.
Hard to say, man. It's not my fight.
No. Well, it's not a fight. We won. History is written by the winners. And we've won more than anyone. That's why we write all the history. That's what the Book of Feuds is. History. And you'll be history on Sunday.
Oh, there you go. Set me up for that one.
Oh, yeah, I tried. All right, we'll be back on Monday. Say goodbye, Cambo.
Goodbye, Bertrand. I hate you.
And it's goodbye from me.